Okay.
Right, good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Good evening. Before you start, Mr. Chairman, may I make a quick statement? I need to inform you that this meeting is not a lawful parish council meeting, as the agenda was not made public within the legally prescribed timeframes. Therefore, as a council, you're welcome to continue with the agenda items and discuss them, but you're not allowed to make any decisions. Or you can choose to adjourn the meeting at this point and reconvene at such time as we can meet lawfully. And the suggestion there would be that we go for next Thursday, the 24th September, and we ask the District Council Planning Officer for a small extension of time to submit any comments on the planning application.
I'm open to suggestions. Anybody?
Carry on today.
Okay.
We will have to meet next week to make the decisions anyway, or meet at some point to make the decisions, because you cannot make decisions today.
I agree. At least we can ratify next week. Or one thing on the council for the planning decisions, we should have 21 days from the point of where we were notified. I don't think we were notified until just over a week ago, were we?
I will raise that point with the planners, but with the status of South Somerset planning at the moment, that's not necessarily an unusual situation.
Wait for us though.
And we are a neighbouring parish as well.
Yes, it's not actually our patch, is it?
No.
So it is only a courtesy that we have been informed. Right, item 1, apologies, absences.
We have apologies from Kevin, Mark, Tony, and so far I've heard nothing from Dennis, but I'm assuming he's going to join us.
Dennis is not joining.
You say Dennis is joining?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As if by magic.
Hey, come on, Dennis, I can't see you. Come on. Oh. Okay, then we'll go to item 2, declarations of interest.
No.
None? Right, you all have a copy of the minutes?
You can't decide those.
We can't? Oh dear. Not really doing a lot here, are we? Okay, item 4, County Council's report. Josh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be with you next week when you do reconvene, but I'll give you a bit of an update what's been going on. In the first instance, before I go into highways, just to let you know, there have been significant changes regarding the regulations to deal with COVID-19, and more are expected. I won't give any definitive kind of numbers at the moment, because I think, you know, it's a very fast changing situation at the moment, but just to give you an idea, there has been an increase in the rate of infection. This has gone up from 2.1 per 100,000 to just over 10. Even though that sounds a lot, being, you know, increasing fivefold there, in comparison to other parts of the country, we're still in a relatively lower sort of infection rate. So the areas where they're looking at lockdown, you're looking at 50 in 100,000. So, you know, still being around the 10, we're relatively low, but obviously that's still a cause for concern that it has jumped up quite considerably. There's an emphasis on the need to reinforce the message of hands, face and space. So that's washing hands, wearing a mask, and maintaining social distancing. Like other areas of the country, there's also been a bit of a pressure on the track and trace, but the county councils continue to work with central government, the NHS and other partners to basically get a grip of that. So that's the COVID-19 update in the area. In terms of highways, small improvement schemes, both small improvement schemes designs have been completed and circulated. There's a minor tweaks which are technical, not fundamental to the scheme. So we're talking about things like the size of painted lines, you know, nothing actually, you know, fundamental to the scheme. The council is still committed to getting these schemes implemented before the end of the financial year, March 21, although after speaking to officers, both of the Chilthorne Doma small improvement schemes, the works will be ordered imminently. And at the moment, they're expecting the construction of both to be in October, November this year. Obviously, there's always potential for slippage, but I don't have the exact dates, but I will keep on top of it and keep you up to date with what's going on. But once those works have been ordered, there's no mucking about, they work at pace and they'll want to get that delivered as quickly as possible. I've received no additional feedback on those schemes, so I assume that you're happy for them to proceed without delay. With Tinternall Road, it looks like we got everything that we were expecting and were promised, and I think there was just some additional reassurances with the bus shelter, which I'm sort of not really dealing with. I think it's between the parish and the highways office themselves. In terms of finger posts, thanks to Tim for sending over the pictures. Cut long story short, unfortunately, the county council is unable to fund the maintenance of those. They have been maintaining them for something like 60 years. They recognise the historical importance, but unfortunately, they're not considered a road sign, which is essential. We're talking, hazard signs are classified as classed as mandatory, but finger posts are not. So what they've said is although they can't fund it and they would expect that to be taken up by the parish council, they have produced a booklet which can provide some essential advice on types of contractors, the works that are required, and they can support the parish council in doing that. So I will forward that to the clerk, and you can decide maybe at a later meeting whether it's something that you want to take up yourselves. And finally, Tinternall road speeds. I've been working with the neighbouring county council in Neil Bloomfield. Neil put together a case as to why he felt that the Tinternall road should be reduced from 60 to the 40, a lot like we've done in the past. This was rejected. He put forward another request to consider it at 50. Whilst they did acknowledge that the current speeds, which they are they're currently what's the word? That during the my mind's gone blank. Sorry, guys. Using the data that they have available to them, whilst a 50 does make sense on the model that they've used, they don't feel that it would provide an overall benefit to the speeds on the road. In fact, I think we've heard this before, they feel that the speed has potential to go up. Now, my own view of the 50 is that, I would completely support it at 40. I think at 50, I don't see there being a dramatic, as dramatic reduction as we'd want to see. But again, this is something that we've heard before, and Neil and I will continue to see whether we can find a way around this and see whether we can get them to shift. But that's where we are with that. Is there any questions on anything I've said so far? No.
Not a question on anything that you've raised there, Josh, but on behalf of Mark, is there any chance of putting a little bit of pressure on the rights of way team? Because there's various rights of way that have been that have issues that have been reported numerous times.
Yeah, sure.
And I did have some communication from Eve, who deals with the area, and left it with her to contact Mark directly, because obviously he's best placed to take her to the affected point. And that contact has not been made.
Okay, so if there's anything, is there an email or something which I can use to kind of use as a springboard to get in contact with Eve and ask her to, make contact with Mark?
I'll see what I can find, because most of the reports have been done through the website, which is
okay. Fine. Okay.
There will have been communication between myself and Eve to do that, so I will forward that on.
Yeah, great, and I'll get on that. That's no problem at all. Sorry, Tim, did you want to say something?
Yeah. in the discussions on the 40, is it worth us working with you and with Tinternell on it?
Yeah, so part of this was actually a joint effort in a sense. We were I think Tinternell wrote a letter and was quite clear on what their views were. That was supported obviously by Neil, their county councillor. You guys have my support in terms of trying to get it lowered. The problem that we have is that the county council, I don't know whether it's an issue of policy or what, but they are unwilling to budge, and they're hiding behind Department for Transport regulations, which are about 15 years, out of date. So we can continue to ask, but I think Neil and I need to get because the latest email I think only came in a couple of days ago. We really need to get our heads together and see if there's any other way around it, because at the moment they're absolutely clear that they don't want to see a reduction, because they feel that the cost of implementing a reduction in speed limit would provide no benefit. And both Neil and I disagree with that. I'm sure you disagree with that, and Tinternell Parish Council do as well. So it's one of those things, unfortunately, where I think we're just going to have to keep on banging on the door until we break it open.
Has anybody done a risk for life analysis on it? The kind of cost of that?
Sorry, I missed that.
Has anybody done a risk for life analysis on it and the cost on that? Because I mean, there's a lot of guidance on the Treasury Green Book on cost versus benefit when it comes to life.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know to what extent they've actually used the data set that they have. So they monitored the road over a period of time, but obviously, you're probably looking at a very a slim window of data that they've managed to be able to get, and I think they've probably used that as a way to try and kind of just bat it away. But it's a good question. I think that's something else that we might want to bring to their attention.
Any other questions for Joss? No? Okay. Thank you, Joss. We'll move on. Well, I don't actually have much to say on that one. It's all going forward. There's two different views, one what the counties put forward, one that the districts put forward. Depends which side of the fence you're on. I suppose depends on where you stand on it. But I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, us, the ratepayers, will be paying the bill. So we're the ones who are going to get stuffed. Right, item 6, highway matters. Unless somebody's a good question.
Yeah, do we have any indication what likely timescales are for this show?
Josh has got his hand up, so.
So as far as I know, and if Paul knows any different, please correct me. Both councils have committed to the timescale of getting the business cases submitted to the Secretary of State by the end of this month. I think it is the county's one is with the Secretary of State at the moment. What will happen then is he will make a decision based on what he has in front of him, what he feels the best option to go with is. There will also be a public consultation throughout the autumn. What they would be looking to do, I believe, is get the necessary statutory instruments through Parliament by the end of the year, early January. Then potentially you'd be looking at postponement of the county council's election, which is due to take place in May, a shadow council, which would be, it could take form in various different ways. It could be the leaders of all the existing councils. It could be a proportional number of councils, but that effectively would sit above the existing 5 councils. That would be formed in March, and then you would then have discussions for that next year on what the council would look like in terms of committees, how it would be formed and function, and then you'd be looking at a unitary council or 2 unitary councils, however it takes. You'd be looking at the election to them in May 2022. So that is the time frame that we have at the moment. That decision is made end of the year. The shadow executive is set up in March, postponement of the county council's election in May. Shadow council then operates throughout the next year, and then you have the new elections in 2022. I should say that the shadow council doesn't completely get rid of the other councils. It sits alongside it, but all 5 councils will be formally abolished on the election of the new council. And that could slip.
Yeah. And we'll all pay the bill.
Yeah.
And a track record at the moment with our next door counties have tried this, and they are paying a lot of money for it. Still, you never know. It might work. Keep our fingers crossed. Best of luck to it. Any further questions? Right, we'll go to item 6 then. Highway matters. Well, Josh has filled you in with most of it, which is very good. Any other questions on highways? No. Right, item 7, community safety and police matters.
Nothing to report.
Nothing? Right, I bet there is on this one, though. Item 8, financial matters accounts.
You'll have received the spreadsheet for inward digestion. Does anybody have any questions on it?
No.
At this point, I normally look at Hamish.
Quite actually, for unusual. Hamish, you happy?
I
Yes.
think that's muted, yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay then. Right. Item 9, planning matters. Who wants to start?
Paul, I think, do you want to do the introduction on it, and then I can talk about yesterday's independent meeting?
Well, we have, by courtesy, I believe it's Brimsmore, isn't it?
Yeah. Brimpton.
Brimpton, sorry, yeah. An outline application for land opposite the Carpenter's Arms. Again, it is purely at the courtesy we have this. And basically they're asking for our comments and what we think. Do we want it? Obvious answer is no. But can we stop it? Pretty odds are, again, it's no. So, as I suggested, the best thing we can do is to get the best deal out of it. And that would depend on what people are looking for. Personally, I'd be looking for them to pay for a zebra crossing to ensure the safety of the children. And if we could lump this together with the Brimsmore, build a roundabout opposite the Carpenters and move the entrance to there. And at least we'll get something of the, I don't know, they'll make the road safer. And whether the houses get built or not, we're not going to stop it. That's my opinion anyway.
At the moment, I think we are not entitled to anything, are we? Because it's not in our parish.
Correct. We wouldn't get any sill payment.
No, but this, you can still put pressure on that we want this. There's going to be a lot of people from this estate, and it is going to be an estate, going to Chilthorne School. And it will require some means of getting those children across that road in safety. And I think it's quite reasonable, if they're going to make all this money on building these houses, that they supply a reasonable and safe passage to that school.
Can I interject ever so slightly at this point? Brimpton Parish Council are discussing this themselves on Wednesday next week. So if there was a feeling that comment, not decision, comment be passed to Brimpton to be included in their parish council, or indeed if any of you wish to attend their parish council, it will be a virtual meeting, then maybe that's a good idea.
Tim, I think it might be a good idea to potentially forward on the document a summary of comments that we made to them for their information, just so they can understand, I guess, some of the themes they were talking about, because elements such as runoff and infrastructure, which were all very valid points, is probably worth raising those with them so they can at least discuss it within their forum.
I think I've got a couple of comments on it, Paul. I mean, the first is this has a direct impact, a greater direct impact on this village, on this parish, than it does on Brimpton. It's on the, it is on the going to have a massive effect on Chilthorne Doma. I would suspect strongly that our parishioners are more seized of concern with it than the majority of Brimpton ones would be. And I think the other side to it, we didn't discuss this last night, but I think we ought to be thinking about it as a parish council, that if this went ahead, we should be looking for a change to the parish boundary to incorporate this new development, given that it will be very much part of and integrated with the village, rather than actually sitting you know, fair and square within Brimpton. I know that's likely to be an interesting challenge, but it does seem to me that this is a Chilthorne Doma matter, and a considerably greater impact on us than it is on any of the other communities in the area.
One thing that I'd like, the school, surely it's not big enough to cater for any more children. Surely, the 73 houses is going to be a considerable number of children involved in that. And is the school big enough to accommodate them? I don't think it is. Well,
Dennis, I mean, the issue is, it is if if other children from other locations are moved, and that has other impact, not least on traffic, as well as on quality of life and everything else. So I've got, one of my sort of top level concerns on this particular application is that it appears to be being looked at as an individual entity, and yet it sits in a much larger set of outline planning applications that cover everything, cover basically all the way from Tinternall through to the developments around Brimsmore Nursery. Surely, one of the things we should be going back to, and not just through Brimpton, is to say that the impact of this on the whole Tinternall Road corridor, if we can call it that, needs to be looked at. Each of the individual ones is looking at themselves separately. The traffic assessment, in my view, is not only the weakest part of the entire outline planning application, it's actually in cloud and cuckoo land in terms of the numbers that are being quoted and the conclusions they draw. How anybody can come up with a conclusion that it's going to be something like 10 seconds extra delay to get out onto the road, I'm not sure.
Adam.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Can anyone confirm the owner of the field that is looking to be developed? Is it the same owner that owns the adjacent field and to the south of that particular location?
Not to my knowledge. I don't believe he owns any land on the other side of Tinternall Road. Okay,
fine. Because I think the biggest concern was around precedent with this particular development, and I think there was a concern raised yesterday that really, once the new estate and the other phases have been continued, the distance between Chilthorne Doma and Yeovil is going to be brought significantly closer. But the development that the location this is planned for, the field adjacent to that, which is a sizable field, it would make sense for that to be then considered for further development down the road. I think my concern is that this is now gone to the other side of Tinternall Road, and there's a lot of area there that can be open for development. And my concern as well from the council's perspective is that when they're not considering enough brownfield site locations, it seems to be all greenfield as part of their the need to meet their quota for house development. So I think it's very scary if this goes ahead. Actually, we could see further development in further fields on that side of the road.
Well, going back a few years, they tried to build 3,000 houses where this plot of land is, all the way to Chilthorne. We did fight it, and they got dumped on the Red House, and they got dumped down on Mudford, and it's now coming back again. I don't know.
My feeling there is, Paul, is that the precedent's changed. The need to develop more houses has now changed, and actually, given the government's change of tact in terms of their approach to putting pressure behind potentially rejecting applications, my worry is this is actually a slow burning fire that's actually going to spread when we start to see the developments approved.
I think you're right, but when you come to brownfield sites, where's the brownfield site to build on? I can't think of any. We built on them. So it's going to be greenfield.
Yeah.
Right, Hamish?
They even turned down next door to me 2 houses in what would be called a brownfield site. Could have been at least 2 houses in there, couldn't there?
Could have been, yep.
This was the debate we had over the Chilthorne NAP one. Yeah, this is the other extreme though. We're looking at, instead of 1 house on a brownfield being contested by planning, we're now looking at 73 houses-ish on greenfield. I come back, I mean, the question on actually what's our strategy for dealing with this one? Paul, I do agree with you that we need to be trying to get the best deal against the risk that it does go forward. I think we also need to be supporting our parishioners, who are pretty unanimous that they don't want it. The strength of feeling varies between individuals, and some can see benefits as well as threat. I just had an hour-long session with on the phone with one lady, and she was absolutely vehement, that in her opposition to this. And I think that we have to reflect and listen to that view, even while we're trying to guide it and trying to guide to look at what the options could be. I do come back strategically. If this goes ahead, then I think we want those houses as part of this parish, not as somebody else's, particularly when it comes to potential further expansion.
I think the issue, and I think you were discussing this earlier, Paul, was that if we object without, or we don't come to the bartering table, our ability to then barter to get some of these other village beneficiary services as added into part of the solution of the development are going to be significantly less. So I think, whilst respecting the needs of the parishioners, I think as a parish council, the general feeling is that we're not supportive of it. But if it's going to benefit the wider village to have a neutral stance on it and actually promote the inclusion of further services and changes, which is going to benefit the village, then there's a difficult balance we need to find there.
Well, personally, I can't see how this benefits the village one iota. To me, it shouldn't even be built.
No,
I agree.
It doesn't belong. It doesn't blend in. It's just, I don't know, somebody making some money out of flogging a bit of land.
You've got your hand up.
I have, yeah. I didn't want to interrupt the conversation too much.
Sorry.
What I wanted to advise was that when it comes to being able to make the decision, obviously that's not this evening, you are able to set forward a set of comments to the district council saying that you would in principle object to it. However, should they be minded to recommend approval, you would like to see X, Y, and Z. So you do chuck in your bartering tool at that point, but you also reflect potentially what you're saying currently and what the parishioners have said as well. So you can sit on both sides of the fence almost.
True, but the best will in the world, what I've seen in the last 18 months on planning like this in all our villages throughout East, we've tried to stop them and we've lost every time. And, you know, it's just wrong.
Yeah, but I think, Paul, I mean, I think you know, what Emma is suggesting, I mean, you know, I did take the time this afternoon to read the guidance on, you know, parish councils reviewing planning applications to get my own knowledge up. And, you know, I think that registering an objection with, you know, details of what our objections are and the actions that could be taken by a developer to address those, you know, reflects both sides of it. You know, simply saying that we request it refused, I agree, is, you know, solves the immediate issue that people, you know, don't like it, but doesn't help the alternative. Equally well, if we stick a reasonable but potentially slightly costly set of requirements there, but ones which we can, you know, back with good logic and argument, I think, you know, we're in a position to you know, to move into the next phase of planning with at least a history of what we've asked for and pushing for it. You know, my fear is if we don't get our strategy against this one ready now, and how we would see it being made to work if it's imposed on us, then by the time it comes around again, it's going to be too late. And things like in trying to ensure as far as we can, you know, affordable housing, given the demographics and issues around the village at the moment, trying to make sure that we get the roundabout, or at least, you know, control the mess that traffic is going to be courtesy of all of these developments, even bigger mess than now. You know, I think all of these things we really, really need to be addressing, you know, and signposting what it is that, you know, we're after.
I quite agree. Any other comments? Any thoughts?
Who's going to draft up a letter for our consideration next week?
I think you volunteered, didn't you?
I thought I was probably doing that. It might look remarkably like the other one. And, yeah, if any, again, you know, you've all got, I hope, copies of the notes from the village meeting. The, you know, welcome suggestions, additions, deletions, for how that might be turned into a letter from the parish council. I think we ought to adopt Adam's suggestion that we pass a copy of that across to Brimpton. And I think we also ought to be talking to Brimpton about you know, so what, as I said, of, you know, actually, you know, is this our greater interest or their greater interest?
I'm sure that they would agree that it's the impact is going to be very much on Chilthorne rather than them. Yeah,
but I mean, back down to, you know, I mean, I know there's lots of benefits for having more bums on seats in villages in terms of the precept. But it strikes me that, you know, actually making this work in the long term is a Chilthorne project, not a Brimpton project.
Yeah, just a comment really is, if you consider it from the other side, all of the residents, the potential residents of the potential development, when they want to raise village matters with the parish council, if they are not part of the Chilthorne parish, then they're going to have very little say over what happens in the village. So from their point of view, they're going to have a vested interest in wanting to be part of this parish, to have a say over what happens in their village, regardless of which side of the road they're on. So I think there's actually a far bigger picture here in terms of actually supporting the new residents of that location. And it's going to be in their interest to actually be part of this parish.
Right.
Some years ago, it was brought up at the parish council about moving these half dozen houses or whatever it is into Chilthorne parish, and certain members of Chilthorne parish were up in arms about it because it was historically, you know, we were going to be mucking up with historic boundaries, which I thought was rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Dennis? No?
Well, I've already put in an objection in online anyway, you know, my personal objection. But I don't agree with it. I don't think it should go ahead. I think it will be an abomination, to be honest with you.
Fine. Oh, where's Tim gone?
He's temporarily left us.
I think Tim had some issues with his internet yesterday, so it may well be. So interesting how I got the point yesterday about internet infrastructure in the village and the fact that it's a bit ropey.
As regards your internet, do you know what the speed is at the box outside my place is?
Don't rub it in, Paul.
No, I haven't got it, but the engineer was explaining to me how fast it was. 135 meg.
Mm.
And that's just outside my front door.
But have you got?
And they can't get it to the top of the hill, can they?
No, so our link here is with Ilchester, and unfortunately, it's
You come across land, don't you? Okay.
Yep.
Right. So Tim is going to take care of a letter to send to Brimsmore.
Brimpton.
Yeah, Brimpton next door. And also to draft it for next Thursday's meeting, isn't it?
That's what I have suggested at the moment. Yes, that's to be decided, and that's the only thing that can be decided.
Right. And you can ensure the minutes get out so we can have a legal meeting. Yeah, fine. Right, we shall move on then. Unless anybody else has got any questions about this potential housing estate. No, fine. Item 10, clerk's report, correspondence, please.
Nothing other than what I've forwarded to you since the last meeting. Been a
Fine.
quiet period.
Allotments, Adam.
Yeah, so I'm afraid obviously I had my absence in the over the summer, and also I was drinking quarantinis the last couple of weeks as well. As a part of that, I know this meeting wasn't actually meant to be going ahead, so I planned to present at the October. However, having said that, the view is still that we will launch the new shared allotments from January, and we will be spending the time between now and then to look at allocating the slots out. I've so far developed the draft paperwork and form for the websites, and the view is that we'll use the website for signing up and promoting the use of that. So at our next meeting, I'll be looking at bringing forward any associated costs, such as sleeper costs and any actual materials we need to bring that into service. I've also liaised with the other allotment owners, and we're going to be joining our forces together voluntarily to bring that particular plot into a good state of repair, so we can then be in a case of actually being able to allocate those out from January on a 12-monthly basis. I think the last meeting as well, we agreed, I believe it was a £5 deposit, which was taken forward, so I'll be making sure that's incorporated as part of the paperwork.
Any questions?
Mark has raised, I've had several conversations with Mark, has raised a suggestion that investigations are done as to get I'm not sure what the correct term is, basically a tap connected to the water mains on site.
So
paid for potentially paid for by the Parish Council.
What I would suggest about that, Emma, is I don't know if you've been past the allotments recently, in the last few months. So I actually built
you've got a water catchment, haven't you?
Rainwater harvester, which houses 1,000 litres. I've had no trouble keeping that full with rainwater. So I would suggest the costs for putting that service in, whilst it would benefit the allotment owners, a lot of the current owners actually live opposite their plots, so the use of it probably would be quite light. And I would suggest, if we're trying to promote a ecologically friendly approach to allotments, I think it might be a good idea to actually factor in whether we build a similar structure on the shared allotments that everyone can use.
I think his comment came from the fact that he had seen people having to walk across the road with watering cans or whatever, And he was quite concerned about the school children potentially having to do the same and them just not coping with that idea.
So
No,
that,
about 3 years ago, when I had an allotment, a bit more than 3 years ago, I did make inquiries as to whether we could have a water supply there, and was told by the council, yes, of course you can, but you'll have to pay for it. And I made inquiries with the water board, and they quoted me £3,000 to put a water supply in, and of course I would be responsible for the water bills.
So it is quite significant. I think also the person Mark may have spotted walking across the road probably was Lara, who looks after the small veg boxes in the school. So I think the view very much would be is I know that the school have got a plot that's dedicated for them, which is obviously another plot for there. So I would suggest actually I think at the moment, if we were to have a look at a potential harvesting solution, then if it comes to the stage where actually the general feeling on the allotments is that we get a water service filled in there, then we can look at that. But yeah,
that's fine. I said to Mark that I'd bring it up. So thank you very much for your.
It's a great comment, and I think we should absolutely continue to review it. But I think my concern would be is that lots of the owners currently live opposite, so they wouldn't have any interest in using it or funding it.
Fine, if everybody's happy on that, we shall move on to item 12, Village Hall.
Right, okay, the Village Hall is now in the process, should now have reopened for use by the school. School are using it quite extensively during the day. I think it's 4 days. They're using it either for extended mornings or extended afternoons. That's creating a few problems because some other groups would like to use it, and I'm thinking particularly of one of the mental health support groupings. And at the moment, there is a negotiation going on between the Village Hall Committee at the school and the other potential users, trying to come up with a solution that might allow 2 or 3 users. The difficulty is the need to clean the hall between use, to leave time gaps between bookings, and to generally try to make the system as free of risk from COVID as possible. Risk assessments for COVID have been completed. I can't possibly say who ended up rewriting the draft that was provided from one of the websites. We've also now had a Legionella assessment finally in the hall, and that was also as part of the reopening the hall to make sure that there wasn't a Legionella risk. So overall, it's beginning to show signs of life. We've got I think our Q2 committee meeting next week. Now, one of the things I was going to ask at that meeting was whether we want to start looking at going ahead with the broadband. Clearly, we didn't. I think we're now on the cusp when it would be useful to the users. So my suggestion is that I take what comes out of that meeting on Monday, reflect it back into here next week, and we can make a decision on whether we then progress with that.
Tim, there is one thing that may be of some interest. I have a demonstration next Monday for a sanitizer, and you put it in a room, set a time, it's 30 minutes it takes, you can't be in the room, and it sanitizes the whole room.
When you say sanitize?
And it destroys all, so they tell me, all the bugs going.
Right, okay. Is that just airborne, or is that surfaces, or what?
Everything.
Okay.
Apparently even stops mold growing around the bath.
You can
Okay,
also,
and the visitors will also die. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so no, if you're in there, you'll die as well.
Yeah.
Hence you don't stay in there.
Okay. Yeah, happy to take, if you've got some bump on it, happy to have a look at it.
what's quite common as well now, Tim, is a lot of companies are using foggers. So you can get foggers that are essentially quite easy to operate, but essentially they fog the room.
Yeah, I'm aware of their use. particularly on aircraft.
Yeah, so, and it's a similar approach. I think it takes 10, 15 minutes or a little bit longer than that, but it's quite easy to operate and use. So,
yeah, I have a few minor ex-professional issues with some of the approaches they use, having looked at it for other purposes that involve biological aspects. So yeah, happy to have a look, but I'll have a very good look at the science behind it as well.
Yes, I say I'm having this demonstration on Monday afternoon next. If you're interested and want to pop down and have a look.
Okay, yeah, give me a time because I've
You'd
got
be more than
a
welcome.
meeting, I think, in the evening.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Who's ultimately responsible for the risks of that, Tim? Is that the village hall?
Yeah, the village hall committee, and the chairman takes her responsibility incredibly seriously on it.
And the insurance is covered. It covers anything as well, such as that.
Yeah, and we double checked that in terms of what the insurance. I mean, I've been quite surprised that the insurance hasn't required all the various pieces. But interestingly, not only have we had to go through the full risk assessment requirements, but so have all of the users, and getting the two to dovetail together is not too difficult, but it's a case of taking the most stringent of each of the groups and the whole requirements. I think, to be honest, I think they've done a pretty good good job in terms of trying to pull everything together. There's a whole lot of advice and requirements on hirers now. There's some of the earlier processes which were perhaps a little bit dodgy have now been tightened up, and all of this was done with the aim of the school, and the school have been very helpful for it. And, I think very pleased with the way that's going at the moment.
Right. Anything else on the village hall?
The only final comment I'd say is I know at one point we did have a booking service that was available by the website. So actually, if there's any benefit in bringing back a similar service, it was always planned to happen at some point, but with dedicated slots to allow for that scheduling and blocking act to happen, then they're perfectly happy to have a conversation about that.
Okay, I think I'll talk to Anne, who's the bookings officer. My feeling at the moment is that while we're working the way through how many people can use it, and we're currently in less than a handful of users, we're probably not going to gain the benefit of that. Once we get back into shorter, more frequent bookings, then yes. But a lot of the users, dance groups, choirs, people who in those sorts of areas, they can't yet start because the activities either breach social distancing, COVID, and now of course the rule of 6.
Right, everybody happy?
Yeah.
Right, we'll go to item 13, Recreational Trust.
Hi. The trust held its AGM last Thursday, which had been put off for several months. The finances are fairly healthy, thanks to the grant from the South Somerset District Council. But of course, income has evaporated, and expenses such as cutting the grass and all these sort of things still go on. So it's not good, is it? The refurbishment of the bar and electronic payment system, they're going ahead with that. They always need to have a project going on all the time, and that's what it is at the moment. The Ash football teams have started training again, and the safety checks have been done on the outside play equipment with no serious problems found. That's a real money for nothing job, that is too. Unfortunately, as you probably all know, Howard Cole had a bad do in hospital, so he's not wishing to carry on as barman, which he has been doing on a voluntary basis. So that's going to cause some problems, but it's taking over all right, as well as can be expected. It's not open fully, but it does open, I think, on Thursday and Sunday evenings.
Any questions on recreation? No. Okay, item 14.
I've got one, Emma. When we put the agenda together for next week, could we also include Lynn's proposal on verge planting, please? She's got done some more work on that, and Kev was happy that we include her. I'll have to check her availability, but as soon as I see the timing, we'll go for that.
Yep, no problem.
Anything else? No. Right, so we have the date of the next meeting, which is next Thursday at 7:30. Is that correct?
As long as that's okay by most people.
Yeah.
Yep.
5th of November on the
Yeah.
the agenda.
Yes.
It's next Thursday.
Yeah.
Next Thursday. Yeah.
And then it'll be the 5th.
Oh, apologies for being a bit late this evening. I had trouble with my camera. So there we go.
Emma, just a question, Emma and Paul. The meeting next Thursday, are we going to be documenting the decisions that should have been made this evening to be then essentially brought forward? Essentially, are we publishing an agenda for the decisions to be made, or are we having the same full meeting again?
I need to take advice on exactly what we need to do. At the moment, my thinking was that we were going to go with the same agenda with the addition of the verge planting. But hopefully, obviously, if we can just go decisions to be made on X, Y, Z, that will speed things up. There are certain things on the agenda that have to be on an agenda of the parish council meeting. So it will be a cut down agenda if we can do it with items to be decided. I can do it, but I need to take some advice on that.
Not wanting to necessarily cut it short for the sake of it, but I thought actually if we're wanting to just get the decisions done so we can essentially formalise that, then I thought that, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, as I said, I will get advice either from South Somerset or from Somerset Association of Local Councils and find out.
Thank you.
Well, if you're all happy then, we'll close the meeting.
Oh, one thing, Paul.
Yeah.
Still nothing further on the house. They closed the site down 3 months ago. There's been nobody there since because there's a problem with the contaminated soil. They've gone down 7 foot and are still in contaminated ground. And they brought in a specialist to test the ground. And that was 2 months ago. And a month prior to that, they closed the site down anyway. But there we go. And I noticed all the fences down. I reported it to the contractor 2 or 3 times. There's no fencing being delivered, but it's not been erected. So I'll be on the phone to the contractors again tomorrow to see what they're going to do about it. But, you know, as of yet, I've still got nowhere to live apart from...
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to say thank you very much for the